Chapter 4. "Oh, I know what let's do," Miss Pettibridge, the lady of the scintillating teeth, whom de Grandin had squired to dinner the previous evening, exclaimed shortly after 10 o'clock that night. "This is such a romantic old house. I'm sure it's just full of memories. Let's have a séance." "Fine, splendid, capital," chorused a dozen voices. "Who'll be the medium? Anybody got a Ouija board or a planchette table?" Order, please." The self-constituted chairwoman rapped peremptorily on a bridge table with her lorgnette. "I know how to do it. We'll go into the dining room and gather about the table. Then, when we've formed the mystic circle, if there are any spirits about, we'll make 'em talk to us by rapping. Come on, everybody." "I don't think I like this," Miss O'Shane murmured, as she laid her hand on my arm. Her usually pale face was paler still, and there was an expression of haunted fear in her eyes as she hesitated at the doorway. "I don't care much for such nonsense myself," I admitted, as we followed the others reluctantly into the refectory. "Be close to me while this progresses, friend Trowbridge," de Grandin whispered, as he guided me to a seat beside him. "I care not much for this business of the monkey, but it may be that the old she-fool yonder may serve our purpose unwittingly. The greatest danger is to Mademoiselle Dunroe. Keep watch on her." The candles in the dining-room wall sconces were extinguished, and with Miss Pettibridge at the head of the table, the entire company was seated at the board, each one with his hands outspread on the dark polished oak before him, his thumbs touching lightly, his little fingers in contact with those of his neighbors to right and left. "Spirits!" Miss Pettibridge, in her role of priestess, threw out the customary challenge. "Spirits, if you are here tonight, signify your presence by rapping once on the table." 30 seconds or so elapsed without an answer to the lady's invitation. A woman, halfway down the board, tittered in half-hysterical embarrassment, and her neighbor silenced her with an impatient "shh." Then, distinctly as though thumped with a knuckle, the ancient table gave forth a resounding crack. "If the spirit is a man, rap once. If a woman, twice," instructed Miss Pettibridge. Another pause, somewhat longer this time. Then slowly, distinctly, 2 soft knocks from the very center of the table. "Oh, a woman," trilled one of the girls. "How perfectly thrilling." "And your name is what?" demanded the mistress of ceremonies in a voice which trembled slightly in spite of her effort to control. 13 slow, clear strokes sounded on the table, followed by 1, then by 18, then others in series until 9 distinct groups of blows were recorded. "Marianne, Marie Anne." "A French girl," exclaimed Miss Pettibridge. "Whom do you wish to speak with, Marie-Anne? Rap when I come to the name as I call the roll. Dr. Trowbridge." No response. "Dr. Grandin." A sharp, affirmative knock answered her, and the visitant was bidden spell out her message, followed by a rapid telegraphic series of blows on the table, sometimes coming so quickly that it was impossible for us to decode them. I listened as attentively as I could. So did everyone else, except Jules de Grandin. After a moment during which his sleek blonde head was thrust forward inquiringly, he turned his attention to Dunroe O'Shea. The logs were burning low in the fireplace, but a shifting, flickering glow soaked through the darkness now and again. its red reflection lighting up the girl's face with a strange, unearthly illumination, like the nimbus about the head of a saint in a medieval painting. I felt the Frenchman's fingers stiffen against mine, and realized the cause of his tenseness as I stole a fleeting glance at Miss O'Shea. Her eyes had closed, and her red, petulant lips were slightly parted, as though in sleep. Over her small, regular features had crept a look of longing ecstasy. Even my limited experience with psychotherapy was sufficient to tell me she was in a condition verging on hypnosis, if not actually over the borderline of consciousness. And I was about to leap from my seat with an offer of assistance when the insistent pressure of de Grandien's fingers on mine held me back. Turning toward him, I saw his head nod sharply toward the doorway, behind the girl, and, following his silent bidding, I cast my glance upon the passageway in time to see someone slip quickly and noiselessly down the hall. For a moment I sat in wondering silence, debating whether I had seen one of the servants creep past, or whether I was the victim of an optical illusion, when my attention was suddenly compelled to a second figure, then a third, a fourth, and a fifth, passing the archway opening like flashes of light against a darkened wall. My reason told me my eyes were playing pranks, for the gliding soundless figures filing in quick procession past the proscenium of the dining-room door were tall, bearded men, encased in gleaming black armor, and shrouded from shoulder to spurs in sable cloaks. I blinked my eyes and shook my head in bewilderment, wondering if I had fallen into a momentary doze and dreamed the vision, but sharply, with theatrical suddenness, there sounded the raucous brazen bay of a bugle, the skirling squeal of an unoiled windlass reeling out rope, and the thud of a drawbridge falling into place. Then above the whistling November wind there winded another triumphant flourish, and the clatter of iron-shod hooves against stone paving blocks. "Why, what was that?" Miss Pettibridge forgot the spirit message still being thumped out on the table, and threw back her head in momentary alarm. "Sounds like a troop of scouts out for an evening lark," put in our host, rising from the table. "Queer they should come out here to toot their bugles, though." "Ah, Pablo, you say rightly, my friend," de Grandin broke in, rising so suddenly that his chair tilted back and fell to the floor with a resounding crash. "It is queer, more damnably queer. Boy Scouts, did you say? Pray they be not scouts of evil in search of some hapless little lad, when a company of empty-headed fools sit idly by listening to the chatter of their decoy. Did none of you recognize the message the spirit had left for me?" We looked at him in silent astonishment, as he lighted the wall candles one after another, and faced us with a countenance gone livid with fury. "Ah, bah, it is scarcely worth troubling to tell you," he cried, "but the important message the spirit had left for me was a silly little nursery rhyme. Great A, little a, bouncing B. The cat's in the cupboard and can't see me. No, the cat might not see that little accursed decoy spirit, but Jules de Grandin could see the others as they slunk past the door upon their devil's work. Trowbridge, old chap, look to Mademoiselle O'Shea, if you will." Startled by his command, I turned around. Dunro O'Shea had fallen forward across the table, her long tawny hair freed from its resisting pins, and lying about her head like a pool of liquid bronze. Her eyes were still closed, but the peaceful expression had gone from her face, and instead was a look of unutterable fear and loathing. "Take her up, some of you," de Grandin almost shrieked. "Bear her up to her chambers, and Dr. Trowbridge and I will attend to her. Then, Monsieur Van Ripper, if you will be so good, I shall ask you to lend us one of your swiftest motor cars." "A motor car now?" Van Ripper's incredulous tone showed he doubted his ears. "Precisement, monsieur. Permit that I compliment you on the excellence of your hearing," the Frenchman replied. "A swift motor car with plenty of fuel, if you please. There are certain medicines needed to attend this sickness of body and soul, and to strike directly at its cause, and we must have them without delay. Dr. Trowbridge will drive. You need not trouble your chauffeur to leave his bed." 10 minutes later, having no more idea of our destination than I had of the underlying cause of the last half-hour's strange events, I sped down the turnpike, Van Ripper's powerful machine warming up with every revolution and gaining speed with every foot we traveled. "Faster, faster, my friend," the little Frenchman besought as we whirled madly around a bank curve in the road and started down the 2-mile straightaway with the speedometer registering 65 miles an hour. Twin discs of lurid flame arose about the crest of the gradient before us, growing larger and brighter every second, and the pounding staccato of high-powered motorcycles being driven at top speed came to us through the shrieking wind. I throttled down our engine to a legal speed as the state troopers neared, but instead of rushing past, they came to a halt, one on each side of us. "Where are you from?" demanded the one to our left, on whose arm a sergeant's chevron showed. "From Mr. Van Ripper's house." "From the cloisters," I answered. "I'm Dr. Trowbridge of Harrisville, and this is Dr. de Grandin. A young lady at the house had been taken ill, and we're rushing home for medicine." Sergeant grunted. "Come from the cloisters, do you? Don't suppose you passed anyone on the road?" "No," I began, but de Grandin leaned past me. "For whom do you seek, my sergeant?" he demanded. "For whom do you seek, mon sergeant?" he demanded. "Night riders." The words fairly spit from the policeman's lips. "Lots of damn kidnappers, sir. Old lady down the road about 5 miles. Name of Stebbins. Was walking home from her neighbor's with a grandson. Cute little lad about 3 years old, when a crowd of bums came riding hell-bent for election past her, knocked her for a loop, and grabbed up the kid. Masqueraders they was. Wore long black gowns, she said, and rode on black horses. Went away whooping and yelling to each other in some foreign language, and laughing like a pack of dogs. May God, they'll laugh out of the other side of their dirty mouths if we catch 'em. Come on, Troop, let's roll," he ordered his companion. The roar of their motorcycles grew fainter and fainter as they swept down the road, and in another moment we were pursuing our way toward the city, gathering speed with every turn of the wheels.